Hi, I'm John Kursky, and the Power Query Lint team wants you to be the most AI-enabled Power BI developer you can be. That's why we're excited to announce that we released a Model Context Protocol server for Power Query Lint. Link is in the description. Now, for many of you, Model Context Protocol, or MCP for short, is a new concept. That's why in the next series of videos, I'm going to show you how to lay the foundation so that you can not only leverage Power Query Lint's MCP server, but also any MCP server that you learn about in the future. All right, so before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date on all the new features we'll be rolling out with Power Query Lint. And with that, we're going to discuss 3 big components that you need in order to be successful in using artificial intelligence in your Power BI development work. That first one is going to be Git, the second one is going to be Visual Studio Code, and the third one is going to be using GitHub. Now, in today's video, all these tools, I'm going to show you the free version. In the next subsequent videos, there's going to be some subscriptions or cost to it. That's the reality of working with AI today. But in this video, everything I'm going to show you is a free, not only a free tool, but maybe a free service. So up on the screen here, the first thing you're going to do is if you've never worked with Git, you're going to have to install Git. I'll put the link for this installation in the description. Git is the way that we can maintain version control of our Power BI models and reports. This is very important when we're working with artificial intelligence because when we ask it to make changes, if those changes aren't versioned, it's going to be a lot harder to roll back or undo some of the changes that AI may have inadvertently broken in your model or done inappropriately in terms of making changes to like your Power Query code that you didn't want it to do. So if you install Git, we're going to lay the foundation for version control. The next thing you're going to install is Visual Studio Code. If you haven't used it before, this is a wonderful IDE or integrated development environment that is free from Microsoft that you can download. You're going to need Git first, because when Visual Studio Code gets installed, it's going to look for Git in order for you to leverage the version control. Now, once you have those installed, the next thing, this is the third thing that you're going to need, is a GitHub account. This is free. Now, I've got my GitHub account. I've already signed up. Just make sure you've got an email that you regularly check because you'll have to set that up. Also, I would also recommend setting up multi-factor authentication when you're using GitHub. Now, up on the screen here, the thing I'm going to show you is I've got Git installed, I've got Visual Studio installed. I need a place to put my Power BI files in order to version them appropriately. So I'm going to go to the top right here, and I'm going to click on the Create New and create a new repository. I'm going to do PQLint demo Git. And at the bottom here, I'm going to pick private. And notice one of the things I always recommend is turn on a README file. And we are going to just skip that and then go to create repository. Now, the reason you want it to be private is you don't want to expose your Power BI report publicly for people to look at. Now, the also nice thing is under the free version of GitHub, you can have a lot of private repositories. So I'm going to hit Create Repository. And notice here, all I have is a README file, which is a markdown file for your content. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is hit the code button, and I want to copy this URL. And then I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code. Just bring it up to the new screen here. And what we're going to do is on the right here, there is a Git button. I'm going to click on that, and we want to clone the repository. So we're going to clone the repository. So the URL I just copied, we're going to paste here. And then we'll pick a place to put it. I highly recommend putting it on your local drive, not on OneDrive, because with OneDrive, the syncing mechanism may lock the files that you would normally need in order for Git to work. So I like putting it on my C drive. I'll select that destination. It's going to clone it. And I'm going to get a pop-up, would you like to open the repository? I'll hit open. Now you'll notice here on the top right, there's that README file that was created. And in the bottom left-hand side, you're going to see what branch you're on. We'll discuss branching later, but there's one branch in this repository, that's the main repository. So the next thing you're going to need to do is set up a couple command lines in order for you to be able to make some changes, push that up to the repository. It needs to understand what your email address is and your username. So what I like to do is I'll go up to terminal, go to new terminal, and then I'm going to put in a git config command, git config user email. That's my email address for my GitHub account. So the email address you use for your GitHub account is what you're going to need to set. And then I'm also going to put in my Git username. And now I've got Git set up so that when I want to make my changes and push them up to the repository that's in github.com, it understands who I am. Now, it's important to note that when there's a couple keywords we're going to use here. You're going to commit locally, so you'll commit changes locally. You're going to sync globally. So when you use Git, you actually keep a mini repository locally on your machine that you're going to commit changes to. And then when you're ready to share it with the rest of your team or put it in the private repository, you're going to sync globally. So let's show you what that experience is like. So I'm going to go to this README file. And all I'm going to do is type in my name. And at that point, I'm going to hit save. And in the left-hand side here, you're going to see that there's a little 1 button next to that Git source control. That is showing me what changes have occurred. This is going to be really important when we're working with AI and it's making changes to our model and our report, and we can kind of keep track of those changes. This is why we need this foundation. So if I'm ready to make the changes, I can go up here on the left-hand side and put in a message. When you're using Visual Studio Code, if you don't put a message in, I've seen this kind of bug where if I hit commit and it never commits. So always put a message in your commit message area. So here is the initial commit demo. I'm going to hit commit. And then notice that it wants to sync those changes. I'm going to sync those changes. Now, if I go back to my GitHub repository and hit refresh, you'll see it picked up because I sync globally. And now I've made those changes. And I can even go to my history. It says 2 commits. I can see if I click on the latest version, it's going to show me all the files that are changed. So this is really important. Again, if we have this foundation, we can make changes or have AI make changes to our model and our report. Keep those changes in history, so just in case we need to roll back or we need to understand what AI has done to make changes to our model and report, we have that ability to do that. All right, so in the next video, I'm going to show you how to set up the next components, which is going to be AI and the Power BI project file. But in this video, I showed you how to lay the foundation with Git, Visual Studio Code, as well as just running through a basic commit and sync process so that you kind of understand how do I keep track of my changes, and I understand that if AI is making those changes, how I can look at the history of those. So I hope you learned something today. Stay tuned for the next video. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.